4 years ago, it was not the winner of the popular vote who won the presidency, but the winner of the Electoral College. And some have called for an end to the Electoral College, but it will ultimately decide who takes the White House this year. Why do we still use it? Here's our Why Guy.
It's all due to compromise, and it is steeped in controversy. Every 4 years, Americans gather to select a president, but the final say is up to the 538 people who make up the Electoral College. 11 Alive viewer Michelle Kulikowski wonders why.
Somebody wins the popular vote, they don't necessarily win the Electoral College. Why in 2020 do we still use the Electoral College?
The framers of the Constitution wanted a strong executive to run the country, but not too strong.
What that meant was that states were going to have to give up power that some were not inclined to give up.
The compromise between presidential power and state power is the Electoral College.
If they wanted the states, all the states, to play a role,
each state gets a minimum of 3 electors to represent them in the Electoral College. The exact number depends on how many representatives the state has in Congress. In general, the presidential candidate who wins a state gets all of the electors there. Whoever wins a majority of electors wins the Electoral College and the presidency. Kennesaw State political science professor Kerwin Swint says without it, a handful of states would dominate the process.
California and New York would basically select every president based on population, along with Florida and Texas.
Emory University political science professor Andra Gillespie points out that abandoning the Electoral College would be tough.
It would require a new constitutional amendment, and that ratification process would probably be really difficult.
5 times in U.S. history, the candidate with the most votes nationwide has lost to the candidate who had enough votes in the right places to win the Electoral College and the presidency.